Yeah, good morning. Thank you all so much for being here and for volunteering. We're going to continue to have additional folks added as scribes as they sign on with their excitement. Some of you I know from the summit, and it's good to see you again. For those that I don't know, my name's Stephanie Thornton, and I have been helping RAI, and we are coming together next week, a week from today, to gather for the symposium. So that's going to just be a really energizing time to make sure that folks have opportunities to learn about new and innovative actions that are moving folks ahead in recovery, to collaborate, to partner, and to come up with some ideas of their own. And the way that this is structured is we're going to have some content in the morning, some report outs from our amazing task force, and some of you have participated in that task force, and some of you may be reporting out. And then we're going to have a lunch discussion about option A and option B of the opioid settlement funds. And then we're going to transition in the afternoon into facilitated table discussions. And that is where we are coming together today to get ready for, thank you, Lizzie, for sharing that, to get ready for how do we make this happen? And what we have decided is to try to get folks thinking about specific case studies that may be applicable to their work, their communities, what they're facing, what they're struggling with. And so we have these case studies set up. They're going to be at a single case study will be at a table. So these are the case studies that we have come up with, and folks at your table may not have any knowledge of Jackson County, but that's okay. They may have knowledge of a county similar to Jackson. They may be in a rural setting, or they may have their own transportation hurdles wherever they are. So individuals at the tables are going to be sitting there because that's where we had lunch, and that's where they've been sitting for the morning. But we want to encourage them to go ahead and have this conversation about the scenario that is assigned to that table. Now, if they feel really strongly and want to go to a different table, that's fine. But we want to try to engage individuals in talking about these case studies. So we introduced a person relevant to the case study and highlighted some of the barriers, highlighted some of those challenges. And then we've also used some discussion points as prompts so that we can continue engaging folks about what may be a barrier to get their juices flowing, get their thoughts flowing, get their ideas started on how do we overcome those barriers based on the resources that we know of, based on the connections that we have in our communities, or based on the ideas that are being shared. So there are actually 10 case studies, and those will be pre-assigned. Folks will have an opportunity to click on a QR code to look at those case studies. They also can read a hard copy of the case study at their table. But what we're asking is for you as facilitators to try to engage with the table a discussion around your person. So you may have Sarah, you may have Jake, you may have Isaac. Look at your case study and try to get to know who that person is and what some of those barriers are. And then we have some prompts that we want you to engage with your group around the table. And those prompts are specific to your case scenario. And you'll have a project planner to fill out, but you can also take notes. And the idea is for collectively your group at the table to describe the challenges and the barriers that the communities your table is representing might see for someone like Sarah. And then what is an innovation or a program or an action that is working well that could help someone like Sarah? What would help address Sarah's transportation barriers? What would help address transportation needs in a rural community? And then who else in the community could serve this person? And the idea there is cross collaboration is the key to option B, but it's also the key to not having a heavy single lift when it comes to these big issues surrounding transportation or housing or access to treatment. So who else can be available in the community to address this person's need? And then what are the innovations that are occurring in your community related to our 4 task group areas? And those areas are peers, housing, transportation, and creative solutions when under-resourced. And the rationale behind that, asking and answering that question, is many of us have access to peers in recovery that are trained and willing to support an individual that is trying to enter into recovery. So how do we best utilize those resources? Many of us know that there are housing and transportation barriers. So how do we overcome those and become innovative in our approaches to addressing housing and transportation barriers? And then the last is kind of a catch-all, which is how can we be creative? We don't have enough money. We don't have enough funding. We don't have enough access to grants. We don't have enough access to other kinds of resources. So how do we get creative? And then thinking about that scenario that's being discussed at the table work, what is one thing that each person from the table is going to take back and implement in their community? And maybe it's small, like reaching out to the AME church and having a sober 12-step meeting there. Maybe it is larger, like talking to the county commissioner about some of the opportunities to overcome transportation, or talking to the housing authority about different kinds of housing opportunities. Doesn't matter what it is, but we want folks to have a takeaway. And then we want to know what they're going to do to try to strengthen recovery back in their communities. So that is the essence of the table work. And we're going to have an hour and a half to do that. We're going to have we'll have a break in the middle, but we're going to have a really lovely time engaging with our groups and making sure that everyone had a chance to speak. And for our scribes in the room today, we want you to capture this information in written form, because there's going to be a report out session afterwards. And that report out session is going to be capturing feedback in an organized way on a flip chart so everyone can see it, so that everyone can hear about the work that's been going on. And we can make sure that those at Isaac's table, the case study Isaac's table, know what happened at Sarah's table and maybe gather some ideas, maybe gather some solutions. Or those who are at Jake's table might be able to learn from what happened to Carlos and some of the solutions that arise from Carlos's suggestions at that table. So we want to really make this interaction as fruitful and positive and engaging as possible, but specifically we want people to be able to have a takeaway, to be able to leave with something that they plan to do based on their time in the room on Friday. Thoughts, questions, ideas, concerns, barriers?
How are people assigned to tables?
They are not. It's self-select.
So when you ask the question, innovations in your community, they're talking about their own community, or they're imagining this case study community?
It would be in their own community. So if they and that's a great question. If they transport the case of, and I'll use what we talked about Sarah to begin with. So Sarah is in Jackson County with alcohol dependence, no public transportation. Maybe that's not the case in Mecklenburg County, where someone at the table has lots of transportation options. But if they have someone in their community that has transportation barriers, what are some ways that that can be overcome? Because we think that it can be translatable. We think that if we stay so siloed in our ideas of, well, this is only going to work in a city, or this is only going to work in a close-knit community, then we're not going to be able to come up with the innovations that we need to. But perfect question. It's the innovations in their community is their community.
Okay. And can I ask something about housing authorities, because I haven't done this for a while? When I used to work with housing authorities, if you had ever had an arrest, especially for alcohol and drugs, you were no longer eligible for living in public housing. Is that still true? Okay, I'll find
But
out.
I was going to say I can say that um, there are permissions that can be made. There can be variances that can be made by specific housing authorities.
Okay.
And that would be one of those areas where, if we look broadly at prohibitions, because there are a lot of things that have those prohibitions, are there variances? Are there exceptions made? And then who do you go to address those exceptions?
Yeah, one more question, then I'll be quiet.
So this is great. This is helping our flow. Our
Are
flow
all these
flow.
case studies adults?
There is a 19-year-old. So we've got two younger individuals. There's a 19-year-old that's involved with campus, university,
Okay,
recovery, or could be involved with
but
university
still, a
recovery.
19-year-old is an adult, so,
And then we've got an adolescent.
oh, we do have
Yes.
it.
So I think of brain development. So I'm not counting the 19-year-old as a
All right,
fully brain developed adult. But yeah, we've got an adolescent in there too.
all right.
We have a criminal legal involved person who's entering returning to the community on parole. We've got a veteran. We've got the campus scenario. We've got women. We've got a professional. We've got a range of medication assisted treatment. We have urban, rural, tier 1, tier 3 communities. I'm glancing. I'm almost.
You mentioned the tier 1, 2, and 3 communities. Would it be of value maybe if we were to assign or to note that on the different case studies, if they are tier 1 county, tier 2, tier 3s, that may be of interest to people as they're joining. If they live in a tier 1, they may be more interested in tier 1.
So when they access those cases,
Oh, it says it. I see it. I'm
they're
sorry.
going to be able to see that. And
Get tickets now with Live Nation.
Lizzie and I had a nice conversation. We don't want to be so rigid about folks saying, this just really doesn't apply to me. So if it doesn't apply and they're like, I've got nothing to contribute to Jake's case, not a thing, or I've got nothing to contribute to Maria's case, they can choose a different table. We'll have a couple tables overlap also, so there may be a couple Jakes or a couple Marias, but they can choose, they can self-select and choose. We don't want to be so rigid that we say, nope, it's not here. Last seat you touched, you're stuck.
And it's also our hope, because this is later in the day, that the case studies will be on the table, so people will hopefully, as the day goes on, explore, look through these and say, oh wow, this case study is really something I can either add to or what I want to know more about. And then we're going to have cards on the table on these little stands, so it's going to be clear which table is which case study.
Quick question. Are we assigned tables?
Good question.
Yeah, so I think this is a good opportunity to choose and make your wishes known. So if Flo got excited about the adolescent Josh, then that may be Flo's choice.
I want the parole person.
Yeah, I'm pretty fond of reentry myself. Well, let's.
All right, but we don't
Do
have
it,
to say. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And let me add, just while I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
we are not expecting for you all to have the answers. So please know that we do not need you all to come up with the solutions. We want you to be the hosts that get the creative juices thinking and get these ideas flowing so that you can reflect back to the attendees. Hey, I just heard you talk about when you reach out to so-and-so at the YMCA. when you do that for this other purpose, for after school sessions, then could you maybe reach out to them about having an embedded recovery program for kids after school also? You know, could you weave that together? So reflecting back to them the ideas that maybe they have the pearls on the string, but they're not totally tied together into a necklace. So we want you all to reflect back, you have the pieces, tie the necklace together. But you don't have to give them the pearls. Don't worry about that.
Stephanie,
Yes.
this is Billy Avery. Is the facilitation this part? This is the totality of it?
There is a project planner that is dropped in the chat, and Lizzie may be able to share that.
Yes, I can share that right now.
And that's again a great question, Billy. Thank you. The case studies have some discussion questions that are prompts. Everyone will have access to seeing what that case study is and what those discussion questions can be to help folks be able to generate ideas. This is the project planner with the instructions to you as the facilitator to get you ready and to get you prepped. And then once you go down to the next page, you're going to see an opportunity to capture who's at your table, as well as which scenario you're working on. So which scenario you're working on, who's your facilitator, who's your scribe, who's at your table, and you can pass that around if you want. And
Stephanie, with this, would it be safe to say that the facilitator just has this like the scribe, but the scribe would most likely be the one filling this in, correct?
Thank you, Tom. Yes, yes. I forget we don't all have to do everything.
And are they doing it on computer or are they doing it by hand?
And we had such a crash with the computer at the summit that
Okay.
we have learned a lesson. I have learned a lesson. That is not a collective we, that is me. I learned a valid lesson. And I think that the site for the symposium is going to be amazing, but we don't want to rely on that. And we don't need to be on the computer either. So on this third page, it says facilitator reads to the table. And if you'll scroll back up a little bit, Lizzie, I'm sorry. Here you go, perfect. So the following questions are focused on the case example of insert your person. What recovery needs and other resources would be helpful to address the needs of this person in this case scenario? And then you're asking about innovation related to the 4 categories of the task force that everyone heard about earlier in the morning. And how might your community, where the person at the table is sitting and coming from, how might their community address this person's need? And then there are the prompts for each of the questions to ask about the case scenario. Does that answer? I know you're reading Billy's, but does that answer?
Oh, it does. Mostly what I wanted to know was this hour and a half is what you want us to facilitate.
This is it.
That's it. Yes.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you for.
Thank you.
I can go big in my head, so thank you for keeping it focused. And the scribes, as long as you keep some of these ideas organized in a way that you can understand the content and that maybe some of the solutions or some of the responses are in accordance with this first question or the second question, it doesn't matter how it gets captured because we're going to capture it on the report out.
And the facilitator does the report out?
So it may be a decision between the facilitator and the scribe.
Okay.
Depending on who has who's got the content, who's got the answers based on what your tables came up with. So we'll leave it to you all to decide who is most comfortable with that report out.
Did we do this last time? We reported out to the whole group?
We did, yeah.
Oh.
And the big picture idea was to have all of the solutions projected onto the screen so that everyone could see them, and that didn't work because of computer issues. So that's why we're going to do the flip charts.
Flip chart.
And you all don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
There is a place where the information is going to be written in hand based on what is spoken from each of the tables, what solutions have come up from each of the tables. So it will be captured in paper is all I'm getting at.
That's where some of us started. The flip chart era.
I know.
We're going back to it. We're doing it old school.
Yep. The most reliable, unless the pen runs out, and I'm going to knock on wood right now. But
I did want to say though, if anyone is more comfortable with typing, and we can do that as well, because I know some people are just really comfortable with their iPad or whatever it is. But we will have, if you want to bring that as a scribe, or we'll have enough pens and papers and copies of this that we can do it that way as well.
I have a question.
please.
Greg Singleton. These tables, is there a maximum, minimum of people that would be there in case there is some type of prompt wanting to be used? Head count at the table. That is my question.
Julie, do you want to talk about the setup in the
Yes.
room?
I'll be
Thanks.
glad to. Yes, basically what we have is we're going to have 20 round tables, and then we'll have 9 people per table. So you're looking at a max of 9 people at each table.
Thank you.
And Greg, to your point, I don't think this will happen, but I'm going to say it out loud. Let's say we get 20 people around one table. I'm going to encourage some of those folks to sit up, just because it's really unwieldy for the facilitators and the scribes to try to engage that number. So if we see folks start to pull up chairs, then we're going to make a decision in the moment to have folks kind of move along.
The other nice thing is that because of the number of case studies we have, we should have almost a perfect split of each case study is going to have 2 tables.
Right.
So if there's one that has interest, we can just sort of say, hey, there's another table with this exact same case study.
If there's 1, 2, or 3 particular case studies that end up being extremely popular, then would we possibly do away with one that may not be popular and add another table? How would you manage that?
I would like to do that. I think that would work best if we can have that opportunity to pivot.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's good.
And that's just again saying, as facilitators of these case studies, we certainly want to give you an opportunity to review the case studies that you choose or that you're assigned. But since you don't have to come up with the solutions, you don't have to have those answers, then your skills are present regardless of who the case study is. So if we pivot, you're still going to have your amazing skill set to bring to this.
Okay, well, let the games begin.
I'll just remind that on the agenda, this will run from 1 until 3:15. There is a break at 2. You're going to be around some amazing adult workers and learners and folks doing the work. So they may get up and move around. They may not take their break. They may take their break. So that flexibility in mind about how that's structured, just roll with it, if you will. I think folks will come back from the break. I'm not worried about that because everyone, I just can't say enough. We're all wrestling with this. We are all wrestling with some aspect of this. And everyone is wanting some kind of solution, some kind of kernel that they can apply and they can implement back at home where they're seeing these issues. And so for me, that is the draw. We all want some kind of solution, and we want to be able to walk away with an actionable step that we can say, this is what I'm going to do. This is who I'm going to talk to. This is what I need to act on next. So I do have full faith and trust that folks are going to come back and be energized with some sugar and some beverage and go for the next hour to finish off the conversation.
Okay, well,
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you all so much for volunteering to do this. And I have a lot of gratitude for each of you. How do we want to designate the case studies at this juncture?
maybe everyone can just, you can go through, obviously we don't have all the facilitators here, but
Right.
maybe we can go through. Yeah, so Lizzie, why don't you look at it, because our screens will be different. Why don't you quickly run through the screen and just call people's name, and they can say which one they want. Of course, sure. The first question is, has everyone had an opportunity to even see all of them? I mean,
No.
So we can't. Yeah, we can't do that.
Why don't I'm going to put my email address in the chat and my phone number, and if you can either call or text or smoke signals or email and just let me know which case study you would like to do. And if there's no biggie and you're just not want to pick any particular one, we'll just pick one for you.
So Lizzie, do that for me. I don't have a preference.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matt.
And you're going to email these to all the people, everybody?
Yeah, everybody has them from the chat, but I'm going to send out an email follow-up to all the facilitators with the content of this meeting and all the documents that they need, the timing, everything.
Okay.
I was telling the truth that I would like to do the parole one.
Yes.
I have a new project going forward this next year to figure out how to get clinical interventions in our reentry programs.
Right.
I hope the people at my table have some really good ideas.
Awesome, Flo.
Yeah.
I am not seeing the list of the case study topics.
Let me send it one more time. Maybe it didn't come through to everybody.
Let's see.
Oh, stop it.
Lizzie, you can put me down for whatever. It's an opportunity to learn, so I'll take whatever.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mariel.
Greg, it's in the chat, and you should be able to click on that link and save to your computer.
Lizzie, this is Felix. You can also put me down for a surprise.
Okay, great. Thanks, Felix. Adventure. I love it.
Okay, I just did say that. Okay.
Great. And Aaron has 1, 3, 6, or 8.
If I start like searching right now and like making a decision, like I will go down the rabbit hole and spend like
you'll be doing it all
this
day.
energy. Yes.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Wow,
It's too hard.
I can relate to that. Thank you,
Yes.
Tiffany.
Thank you again, Tiffany.
Oh, that's my signal. I have to jump off as well, but just put me down for whichever one. I'm happy to be surprised.
Thank
That's
you,
great.
Kelly. Appreciate you.
And if you all have questions as we go along, please reach out. As you look at these, as you look at the project plan, or as you conceive of the day in your mind, just reach out and see if there are questions, then ask them. We'd rather you ask a question that could really be applicable to everyone than thinking, well, it's not worthwhile to ask, because my brain and Lizzie's brain and Tom's brains all work differently. And if we don't talk about it, then we don't know how other folks are hearing it, seeing it, or conceiving of it.
That's a great point, Stephanie. Erin, did you have a question? I saw your hand pop up for a second.
I was just going to go back to the housing for those in the or who have been incarcerated or have convictions. I sit on our local housing authority board, so I texted our the director of the board and was like, "Hey, what's the deal with that?" And he said that we look at the past 2 years. So, like someone was saying, it varies from authority to authority. So if there's sex conviction or sex assault crimes, or if there's any convictions in the last 2 years, then housing is not available.
Thank you so much, Erin, for reaching out to your contact person. That's really helpful.
Lizzie, I'll take any of them, the scenarios.
Thank you, Billy.
Well, I'm gonna have to sign off real quick, but I appreciate you all and I can't wait to see you all.
Thank you,
Thank
Felix.
you so
We can't wait
much.
to see you too.
Bye.
Okay, guys. Well, if there's not anything else, I think we can close out. And thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate your enthusiasm for this. And we're really, really excited about the 8th and can't wait to see you all.
Absolutely. Thank you to every one of you for your contributions, what you're doing, what you've done, and we look forward to seeing you Friday.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks for
Have a
having
nice
me.
weekend. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank